Hi, it's Tracy. Welcome to my home here in Sussex, England, where we are transforming the guest cottage veranda for summer using thrifted finds, a little bit of imagination, and 5 litres of green paint. We'll be spraying furniture, making cushions, shopping my home, mixing fresh and faux florals, spending very little money, yet completely transforming the feel of the space. And wait until you see what I do with some Christmas decor. You join me after all the cleaning has been done and it is ready to decorate. Now we're going to be doing lots of makeovers, yes, including this working vintage bathtub. In fact, it's not even vintage, it is antique. More on that later. But first of all, let's get a rug down on this floor. This is the rug that I've been using out on the house veranda for quite a few years now. It has seen better days, but it's still got some life left in it. There are a few little marks on it, but I have a cunning plan to cover those up. It looks a little bit boring there, doesn't it? A little bit beige. So I think we need to add a little pop of colour. This is a wool rug that I bought several years ago from HomeSense. I've used it out on the house veranda. And now, as it's fading down, it's still looking beautiful, but I'm going to downgrade it to the guest cottage veranda. Now, obviously, we have to get the approval of the furry supervisors. If you've not been here before, meet Bertie and Bear. You will see a lot of them through this episode. The revamped vintage mirrors are staying, and beneath them, I want to pop in a sofa. Now, this charity shop find I've had for several years. I've never painted it. It's just weathered down, always been used outside. But it is looking a little bit shabby, and I do like a bit of shabby, but I fancy painting it. And this is the paint of choice for this episode. I've had it colour matched in this Farrow and Ball colour. I'm very much leaning into green at the moment, and I think this is absolutely delicious for an exterior paint. A paint that needs no priming and no sanding. Happy days. Now, I've brought out my sprayer. I've not shown you my sprayer for a very long time. I'm always using a brush or a roller, but for this project, for this episode, I think we need to heavily get into the spraying. This Cinza paint is a dream to work with. It's recoatable in 1 hour. You only need 2 coats and then you leave it 7 days to cure to fully harden. And it's now fully refreshed. I'm so pleased with the colour and how that's turned out. I want to pop an armchair over there and one here. Now, I've got some more of this cane furniture, conservatory furniture. These were an eBay find, and I got 2 chairs and a table for £23. I have used them for several years. I did put a wash over them. I did a distressed white, and they've always been outside. So that paint is starting to lift and blister, and it's all just looking a little bit worse for wear. So I don't want perfection here, so I'm just going to use a wire brush and a stiff brush, give it a good clean over, and then give it a blast with the spray gun. In this spot, I want to add a side table, and it's the side table that came with the 2 chairs. As I say, £23 for those 2 chairs and this table. Happy days. Get on Facebook Marketplace, get on eBay, look at your small ads. You can generally pick up this cane conservatory furniture for very low prices. Now we want to do a coffee table. If you've been with me for a while, you will recognize this little table. It comes out onto the verandas time and time again, and quite often I change the colour of it. I tend to leave the base and the legs a very neutral colour, and that just makes life a lot easier to change the top. So a quick sand is all that's needed to strip it down, and then I normally recolour with whatever colour it is I'm using that particular season. This time I'm going to apply the matte lacquer, the Annie Sloan lacquer, because I'm going to leave it bare. Oh, get me, no paint. So that's the furniture structure at this end of the veranda. Let's move back down to that bath, that antique bath, the French Bathtub. Long story behind all of this, detailed it many times in past videos. We're going to paint it, and the lid I can take to my spraying station, and you can see the variation in colour here. I'm very much going with the olive green. This is a capability green that I'm painting over, and I could spray the bathtub, but it is just so much easier to sit and use the roller and a brush. I'm loving the depth of this green and pulling it right the way across the veranda. Now, in this spot, we normally have a rocking chair, but before I get on revamping that, I'm going to put last year's cottage veranda rug down. And as you can see, it is a little bit faded, but if you flip it over, it looks great on the underside. So never discard a rug without checking the underneath. You might get a few more years' life out of it. On to the rocking chair. Now, this has had several colours over the years. It was originally just its natural wood. It went pink, it went green. This is a colour wash effect that I did with the capability green when I was using that a couple of summers ago. And I really liked the technique of just doing a wash of dragging paint over. So I thought, oh, I'll have a go with this new paint. Bertie was not loving it. He said, that is pants, darling. Get your spray gun out. Do a nice block colour and just let the thing weather down. Well, you know, Bertie knows best. So that's exactly what I did. Doesn't that look great on the rug? Do you know that rug? I only paid £10 for it from a charity shop. Right, let's move over to the swing seat. You don't get a lot of these in the UK. This was a Wayfair find a few years ago, and it's been various colours. So I've unhooked it from its chains. It's out on the drive, and there are a few little areas where the paint is blistering. So I'm just going to sort those areas out, but not actually sand the whole thing. You just don't need to with this paint. Now, when I originally painted it in the Annie Sloan Capability Green, I know a lot of you got in touch with me and said, you've put the bolts in the wrong way round. I checked the instructions and I had put them in the way the instructions told me. But you, my lovelies, were absolutely right. So this time I've made sure that the bolts at the front are pointing outwards. So no legs are going to get scratched on my veranda. Trays, just one more little spray job. These really old rusty trays. I'm just going to colour up and then I can use them as accessories. Now, I've got a little bit of paint left and I don't just want to put it in the garage. The boys said, no, come on, give people a sneak peek of what furniture is coming up in the next episode. It's a good way to get all the paint used up so I'm not having to store anything in the garage. This bike as well will be featuring next time. This is my daughter's old university bike, and I used the very last drop of paint on it, which meant I had used a full 5 litres. Amazing paint. Highly recommend. Definitely tune in next time to find out what we do with those items. Back to this episode and a basket planter. This is a Moses basket found in a charity shop, just £8. I did this 3 seasons ago. I used up some very old paint that I didn't particularly like just to freshen it up, and then decided I needed to put a liner in it because I wanted to add soil. I had a very old builder's bag that had a big hole in the bottom, was about to go out to the recycling, but I thought, oh, part of that would work. So I popped that in as a liner, filled it up with compost and added summer bedding plants. And then I did the same again the following year. And then I'm going to do the same again this year. Now, when I put it out onto the cottage veranda, I didn't want it to mark the deck, to mark the floor. So I actually used a couple of stair spindles underneath just to elevate it slightly. Now, this year, I wanted to go with the colour theme, so you might get a little clue here what colour it's going to be. And there we go. Now, we have had hail, we've had frost, we've had all sorts of weather, so I'm amazed these plants are still alive, quite frankly. Now we're going to do fabrics. Oh, I love doing fabrics. These cushions are the cushions that actually came with this sofa. I was so lucky that they were so neutral and so clean. Now, you can probably tell that this sofa does not belong with these chairs, but fortunately, the seat pads fit just. So that's the structure. Now we can start putting on, as my husband would say, the fluffy stuff. But first of all, let's make some cushions. We have a few options here. Now, this is fabric that I found on my Cornwall shop and haul. This is one where I got 4 curtains for £1. So, absolute bargain. This is a leftover from when I made table mats and cushion covers and all sorts of things. And then there is this pair that I found last year. Hadn't made up my mind what to do with them, but I think they're going to be great. £7.50. Quite a bit of fabric. Let's see how many cushions we can get out of it. Now, the material is actually quite thin, so I thought, ooh, I will use the lining as well. I am not a natural born sewer. So let's just get this clarified right from the get-go here. I've taught myself by watching YouTube videos, and this is the simplest method I've found that works for me. So I take the width of the cushion pad, and that is going to be the width of my fabric. For the length, I double the cushion pad and add on a few inches. So this pad is 16 inches. Double that, that's 32. They normally say add on 5, but actually I'm adding on 8 and going to 40 in length. Once I've marked that off, cut it out, I'm then just going to stitch down the 2 long sides. This is a machine that I have borrowed back from my daughter, and it's absolutely amazing. Love it. So simple to use. So once I've done either a zigzag or a straight stitch down the 2 long ends, I then go to the short ends, turn up about an inch or so, press that in and then fold it over and go halfway again, if you like, into the crease line. Press all that down and then just use a few pins to keep it in position. Back to the machine, stitch both of the short ends back onto the ironing board, fold it in half and find the centre point, which I mark with a pin. I'm then going to open up that fabric and flip it over so I've got my finished side facing me, and then bring one end into that centre point, which has been marked with a pin, and then just bring the other end over until I get the width of the pad, which is 16 inches. There are all sorts of complicated calculations, but I just found this method works best for me. I then just pin these two loose sides, take it back to the machine, and just run a stitch straight down. I also find it useful as well if you put the pins in so they're facing you, the heads are facing you, they're really easy to take out as you whiz down with the machine. And then all that's left to do is turn it inside out, and to get those lovely sharp corners, I use a chopstick or a skewer. Now, I'm not professional, as you can tell, because the back has got all the pattern on it, all the lovely flowers, and the front is quite bare. I tried. I added the extra inches to the length, so I didn't get any gaping on the back, which will now become the front. Thank goodness I added the extra inches. The production line continued, and I actually managed to get 8 cushions out of that £7.50 fabric. I have another cushion. Now, this knitted one has been grey, green, brown, and I did try and dye it red for Christmas, as I try to dye lots of fabrics, natural fabrics, in order to revamp them for different seasonal styling. Now, I know what I'm doing with this, so, I did exactly the same as I always do. They didn't come out red. They came out this pinky purple. It didn't work for Christmas, but now is their moment in the sun, quite literally. This is a throw that I've had for many years. Started off in the house, then got downgraded to outside. It's polyester, so unfortunately it won't dye. And decorating with furry supervisors can be quite challenging at times. Just a little bit of housekeeping, friends, while I pop the cushions on. If you're enjoying this video, please do all the things you're supposed to do. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're watching it in the first 7 days, please do give me a little hype if you're really enjoying it. Thank you very much. So that's the fabrics done, nothing new purchased. Time to decorate this big dresser. And as you've probably noticed, I am somewhat vertically challenged, so the step stools are out, and we're going to head down to my storage shed. The storage shed that is packed full and desperately waiting to be reorganized. I'm just waiting for the weather where I get a good run of dry days so I can get everything out and get that sorted. Now, I'm going to have a look around for different things that I could possibly use out on the guest cottage veranda. I spy some yellows there. I don't know if I want to introduce yet another colour. I can certainly see some pinks and whites, so they may be useful. I've just got to say I really love shopping my shed because I love shopping my home. I love taking what I already have and then using it in different locations to create different looks and feels. Now, the first thing I'm bringing on is a picnic hamper that, a few years ago I sprayed white. And then I've pulled out a bundle of faux flowers that I only ever really use these outside. So I think we're going to do a little creation with those. I find the easiest way with these is just to put them in on an angle on the diagonal, if you like. Bring the lid over and just create something quite whimsical. Christmas decor next. I think if you spend a lot of money on these investment pieces, why keep them locked away for 11 months a year? Plus, I think most of us are against single-use plastics. And if you've got the plastic, then use it. Get some value out of it. I also thought that the colour coordinates really well with the rug and the cushions. What do you think? Am I a bit bonkers? Should I have just kept those tucked away? Just a quick FYI, that mirror is not dirty. It's where all the film, the backing, is starting to degrade. Just in case you think I hadn't been doing my housekeeping properly. The little side table is next, and I'm going to add the first of our 2 trays on here. Nice pop of green, along with this gorgeous jug that I found for just £3 because the handle was broken on it. These normally sell for £20 to £30. Good wash, broken handle doesn't make any difference to me. Happy, happy days. Now, while I was in that charity shop, I also came across this handmade little pot, just £3. I mean, it's just so sweet and gorgeous. Faux dahlias. Yes, I know, more faux, but my dahlias aren't out yet. And once they are, I will switch them over. On to the coffee table. Oh, I love a bit of coffee table styling. Now, here is another bargain find. This tray was only £2.50. And for all you plastic haters out there, this is real. This osteospermum was only £2 from my local supermarket. Next to the Jacari bats, I'm going to use these little glass jars. I think they were yoghurt pots with these tea lights that I found at Home Bargains, and they're just £1.29 for 24. Moving along the veranda, I want something big and bold, so I am bringing out my Alibaba laundry bin. First time on the cottage veranda for this one. It's got stones in the bottom to weight it down and some chicken wire. That was from an old floral display. I'm shoving old pillows in order to pad it all out because I want to keep my palm upright. So I'm giving it a good bit of stuffing, and then to hide all of that, I'm using that piece of fabric that I never actually made a cushion out of. And to finish it off, I'm adding its jaunty little hat. And where are the furry supervisors? Meet Ozzy. He's one of our family dogs. And they have gone off after a few poses to go and play on the forest. They're having a rare old time together, which means it leaves me in peace to get on with the decorating. So we're going to move over to the mirror and the bed head. I love this carved panel. Now, on top of the shelf there, I've already added these sticky hooks. Now, use these with caution. They're amazing, but don't put them on painted or papered surfaces, as when you try to remove them, they will cause damage. More Christmas decor. Oh, these cedar garlands. I just love them. They are way too good to put away. I bought quite a few at Christmas. I have already shown you one way of using them, and that's wrapping it round and round on itself, flipping it over, and it looks like a big plant, and you can just pop that in a vase. Fabulous. This time, we're going to do something a little different with it. Now, that's not really saying summer to me, so we've brought down some of these foam roses with the wires, and they were from Amazon. I'll link them below, as with all the other bits and bobs that I can possibly link. Something summery at the end of the vine. So we're going to have a little throwback now, and I'm going to show you how I made this. Basket. This again was a charity shop find with a lid for just a couple of pounds. I had some inspiration when I was recently in Seville, and I thought, I could maybe do that. So I've pulled out my EasiFil. You will have seen me use this joint compound, this wall filler, lots of times on lots of different projects. And now I'm going to show you another way to use it. Full disclosure here, I have never done this technique before on a basket. So we're just going to figure it out as we go along. And this is the beauty, I think, about being creative. You don't always have to know step by step every single thing you're going to do. You just need to start and then figure it out as you go along. And as I am figuring it out, I'm using the lid as my test object, if you like. So you can see there's not a huge amount bleeding through on the back. Bertie here insists on curling up in this little baby bed, even though I do put the furry mats out for him when I'm working. Now, it's a very hot day, so the product is drying really quickly. So to keep it moving around, I just keep spritzing it with water. It's not quite as smooth as I would like yet, but I'm going to let that dry. And now I've kind of worked out my technique, I'm going to move on to the basket. Spritzing water onto the gloves really seemed to help, just smoothing everything around. And there is product showing through on the inside, but that could be chipped off or just left, really, because it's not going to be visible. I'm going to let that dry and go back to the lid. And I used a sponge sander to start with, and then just a piece of folded paper, but it wasn't really working. Then a damp cloth. Oh my goodness, that was brilliant because it reactivated the product and you could just wipe it off. So definitely to smooth it all out once it's dry, give it a really good soaking with a damp cloth. That removed any marks in the filler, and also it off the raised edges of the basket. It pulled that basket back through just to give that lovely texture. What a great finish. I am super pleased with how this turned out and not too dissimilar from the inspiration. So once it was all dry again, I then gave it a couple of coats of clear matte lacquer just to seal it in. So that was last year, and as you can see, it's kept perfectly well. Good as new. Well, that's a bit of an eyesore, isn't it? That outdoor socket. But never mind, I have a cunning plan. I just pop a basket over them. Vintage books. Oh, I love styling with old books. And I use them wherever I can, but always colour coordinated. I love to use artwork outside as well. It's actually quite a nice little piece, this £10 from a charity shop. It was slightly faded and damaged, so that's why I'm happy to use it outside. Bathtub styling now. Behind the bath, I've got 3 blocks of wood. They're actually offcuts from the build on the house veranda, and I've used the middle one to attach the taps to. I'm going to bring out my 4-foot yucca. Now, if you've been with me for a little while, you will know I bought some of these from Home Bargains, 1999, 4 feet tall. Beautiful structure, supposedly weather and UV resistant, time will tell. But they look really quite realistic. And good faux is very hard to find in the UK unless you're spending an absolute fortune. The pot at the bottom was pants, but they always are. So I got the Hessian out, and each one of the quite a lot that I've been buying, I've been wrapping them in this Hessian. You could use any fabric. It's just a great way to hide those horrible cheap plastic pots. And how many did I buy? Please don't ask, because I'm too embarrassed to tell you. At the end of the veranda, I have this huge fern, and I dug it up really as a little baby just out of the field, popped it in this pot, and each year it just gets bigger and more luscious and more gorgeous, and it lives there all year round.